Hey, what's going on? I'm Corey and I run an AI automation agency that's making 5 figures per month. And today, what we are going to do is we are going to build a fully automated real estate agency. We're going to go through the mapping and the strategy of what it looks like to map this stuff on the back end, how we can implement this. Now, we're not going to build it today, but you get a very good idea of what is possible and how we can actually automate a full business, especially a real estate business, which has a high turnover, especially in today's market. So let's jump right into it. So here we are. Full confession, I did record about 10 minutes prior to this and the recording cut off. So what we're going to do, I've left this here and I'll just go through what we're looking at. So when we're looking at a business and when we're looking at what to map it, you often see people do the builds. So you'll see everywhere on social media and people selling these guru courses. They're showing you just the building side, but it's not as simple as just implementing and, oh, this is a new tool. Let's just put this in the business anyway. If you've seen any of our old videos, we often go through that. You need strategy, you need mapping, you need foundation, you need just everything. And a lot of this is what you don't see. Most of the sort of high-end people, and myself included, will go through and actually map this on the back end before giving quotes. And then if we're doing strategy sessions or consultations, then we have to do this on the back end as well. And then we come to you guys with a solution and say, this is what we want to do, this and this. So what I want to do today is I want to show this to you and what it looks like and how our thought patterns work. And how we're going to do this is through a real case study. So a real estate client approached me asking how they could automate the whole sales front end, pretty much everything. And I thought it's a perfect example to show you guys exactly how we do it. And by the end of this, we should have about 90% of the whole sales process within a real estate agency completely offloaded from the owner. So it should be all automated. There will be some aspects where you will need some staff, for example, during the appraisal section. But the idea is that the owner is not there. You may have sales reps, but majority of the systems are completely out of human hands. So that's what we're doing here. In terms of the sales aspect, there's many variations of it. You have commercial sales, you have residential sales, you have certain contracts, you'd have possibly like within the buying agents and conjunctional sales as well. But what we're going to focus on here is just residential sales. I'm not going to map all the other ones because I'd be here forever talking to you guys, but not that I don't like it. But let's jump into just resident sales. So the first step is we need to map the process. Let's go intakes for intakes for the residentials that we need. So whenever a real estate agency gets sales, it usually comes from one, old school marketing. This can include billboards. This can include flyer drops. This can include bus stop features. It could be in a newspaper. There's just all of this is deemed old school. And I know it's not super old school because that was my era as well, doing this. But for the sake of the digital age versus non-digital age, we refer to this as old school marketing. And then you have referrals, which usually comes from friends or family. This is a huge portion of the real estate industry. And then the third part is organic and paid media. So any of the social, digital age stuff type of media, whether it's organic, which means, you've posted something on Facebook and they've seen it, or it's paid like a Facebook ad, Google ads, and all that stuff. So once we do that, we know there's 3 entries to the real estate, 3 general entries to the real estate. From there, we want to go down and we want to find out the steps. Now, the steps don't need to be very detailed for the time being. A very common issue that we have when people map this is they go so far into detail that they lose sight of the purpose of the automation. An example of this is if we're going maybe like the internet paid media, people will create automations and they'll say, "Oh, I need someone to do my posting for me and to do the brand voice and to um, add all of these different flows," but then they forget the goal of the paid media is clients. It's to either run the paid media to sell the house, so you put pictures of the house up, or it's to run the paid media for the company to get clients. It's not for brand awareness. The overall goal for the business is usually money, revenue, clients. Brand recognition and all that can come later down when you're like enterprise level. But the point, you dive so deep into one singular row that you forget that there's multiple layers. So you want to sort of do it overarching in it. So in here, there may be 5, 6 different steps, but overall, the goal of this section is they see the ad, they make a call, they send an email. That's it, right? We do the appraisal section. So we go out and do it. We sign the contracts, and the contracts will be between the seller and the agency. And then they market the property, which then there is technically another contract section here between the buyer and the seller, but we'll leave that out because it's still, as we said, overarching in this one. And then we go through the seller cycle, so inspections, finalizing contracts, deposits, finance, all that sort of stuff. So once we have all this, we do it for all 3 entry points, or how many entry points you have. Now, what we want to do is once we have this, we have our foundation, right? So then we can just simply go in and we can pick out each of these. So they see an ad and then make a cold email. So what do we need for the ad? Well, we probably need some sort of pictures, videos, some sort of media, right? And we may need a few or an ability to generate this media. From there, we need an approval system. You could do an email management to the stakeholders, which would be like a marketing slash PR person, possibly like a company that's doing all this stuff. And then from there, what you need is inbound calling support. So these are the 3 main ones that would make this up. So you want to generate the media, you want to create the flyers, the banners, whatever you're doing in it. From there, people will see it, they will call you. So you need inbound calling support, and if they email you, then you need a way for email management, and then you also need to be email management inbound and outbound. So how do we do this? Well, what we could do is, let's do a different shape. Let's go this funny one. No, let's go hexagon. What we can do is within the approval, we can do, let's do this as automation Canva generation. So what you can do is there's an automation you can set up, which pretty much will link maybe like a spreadsheet, so like a Google Sheet. You can actually go to Canva with pre-designed templates and brands, right? So in Canva, you can set out brand colors, writing, what sort of text you want, the fonts, just everything. And we can utilize that as well as the assets that are in there. So assets as in like stock photos, and we can actually generate these flyers completely automated. And what it is you just put the variable for the names. So we may put um, lowest cost guaranteed. Now let's do a realistic one. Sell your home in 30 days. Contact. Writing is hard today. Company name. So we can put them in the variables. And what this does is this can make a flyer like so. And possibly we have the contact like this, for example. And in here, we'll say this wording here. And this photo here might be of a house, but this may be a stock generated into the driveway. This might be a stock generated one. You might also have your logo here. So what we want to do is we can sort of preset this out, and we can either use Google Sheets and we can put certain information using this Boolean, this sort of templated script, you could call it. So all of this can be done with this, yeah. So we can tick that. And this could be run however many times you want. On top of this, you could also set the size as well. So you just have multiple templates. So you might have that template as one. This template might be another for flyers. And whatever the media companies needs. Next, what we need is an email management system, right? So emails coming in and out. So how do we do this? We can go on a simple make.com/N8N for email management. And then what this may look like is we do like a watch module. So it's watching the inbox. When an email comes in, we want GBT to understand, translate whatever it needs to, and then pretty much draft an email. Draft. It's hard to see. This, in a nutshell, this is, I mean, it's a little more complicated than this, but this is how we can sort of do it for inbound coming in as well. Now we need a draft here as one of these vowels to just get approval, especially when it comes to sort of inbound for these appraisals. We don't want just blatantly go out. You know, what if someone messages us and they say, can you do this for 2%? And then ChatGPT so it just analyzes it and goes, okay, well, I can get this client. Yes, I can. That's the last thing we need. So what we're going to do is we'll put a valve here. We'll make sure it's a draft, and then this will be like a human intervention. So you just have to click yes or no. And this can be done essentially for your whole management. In terms of outbound, we can sort of add to this flow, and we can say once, so maybe this can be inbound. Wow, that was a bad B. Then outbound, I need to get a drawing pen. We can have a node here that checks the Google Drive. I'm a pro with Paint. Google D. Now we go for Drive. And what happens is once this flow is completed, it then puts it into Google Drive, right? So what we can do is we can set this up and we can just say watch. When that looks like gibberish. when it goes in as watch, it goes, holy shit, hey, we got a file. What do? We need to send it. We can then use GBT again to write the email and then send it as a draft. And we can do pretty close to the same thing here. The difference is we're not watching the inbox for new emails coming in. We're watching a Google Drive to see what comes in. So that can pretty much be done. Now, inbound calling support. How do we solve this issue? Well, luckily in today, we have great systems. One of them, FAPI or 11 Labs. So we can set up a voice agent to answer the phone for us. Really, we can implement this as also a text message system, something like Twilio. We can go text. We can go call. So when they call, our AI agent can answer this call. They'll answer it and they'll be pre-programmed and linked up to our calendars. And they'll essentially try to push for this appraisal stage here that we're going for. How we can do this is I would use 11 Labs. And for real estate agents, what we want to do is implement a great feature that it has. Voice cloning. Voice cloning for the real estate agent, the real estate industry is key. It is killer. When you answer the phone and it sounds like the actual real estate agent, because we've cloned the voice, it's brilliant. They don't know the difference. And a lot of the real estate conversations that go on aren't super technical, especially within the first part of it. It's usually how much you cost, when are you free, maybe a couple other like niche questions, but majority of it is pretty straightforward human conversation. So we can implement a calling system here and then if once we call them, sorry, the red is annoying me. Once they call in, we can also send them a text message. And in here we can, hey, thanks for the chat. First name. Look forward to seeing you on date. Cheers. Correct. So, excuse me. What we can do now is they call a voice cloning agent. Voice cloning agent will then answer the phone. It will book the appraisal for us. And then the follow-up sequence will trigger in make.com. And we send them a text message and we just say, hey, looking forward to the chat. So it looks like we've answered the call and we've texted them. And then we lock it in the calendar. So now, inbound support, done. So you can see just like this, I just realized we need a hexagon for this stuff. FAPI calling equals, let's just do 11 Labs. Text equals oh my god, I kept everything in here. Interesting. So I'm going off track because of my OCD. So now we have the whole front end from, I guess essentially you could call it an onboarding sequence, right? It's pretty much streamlined. What we have is if we bring them all up, we have 3 or 4 automations. We have automatic media generation. We have an automatic inbound and outbound email management system. And then we also have a inbound calling and text. This could also be outbound as well. So people filling out appraisal forms and stuff. And just like that, there shouldn't be any there shouldn't be any flows. We shouldn't have any gaps or leaks in there for this one bit, right? And this would pretty much cover your old school marketing method. Now, I would say that's pretty much sorted. Um, your appraisals, obviously, you want to go in person. But then in terms of let's look into contracts, I don't need to do a lot with this because really this is just going to be a onboarding sequence. Um, so what's going to happen is you have some sort of contract software, and once the contract is signed, it will send an email. From the email, it will send any further documents that it needs, and then further documents, and then we're going to book in photos and stuff. So we could really leave it at the email sequence. So we call this an onboarding sequence, and this would just be a single make.com flow. We're gonna have to make this one. Onboarding sequence. Where we're gonna put you? We'll put you here. Now, when we come to marketing the property, we already have an automation for a Canva generation, right? So all we need to do then is just change a few things. Change a few things on this to sort of go from like a for sale to marketing the property. So rather than using this stock photo, we'll use the actual photos once they're all done. On top of that, we may implement, so we might have use Canva generation system. We're writing in the Japanese that writes downwards, the old school one. Use the generation system. We may also need a LinkedIn outreach to buyer agents. So what they may look like is, so I have one here for an automation in N8N. So when a post gets engaged, we might post like a picture and say for sale new property. We're going to check for comments. We're going to reply to the comments like you should. But this can all be automated for the comments. And then what we can also do, I'm just in the demo account now, we could implement something like a lead generation. So once they reply, we can then get their LinkedIn profile, give them a scoring algorithm, right? So we can sort of say, are you within these? Because maybe these are the people that have the money, for example. So if we're selling a $2-3 million house, we need someone with the money. So we're going to, determine whether they're a good lead. We can add them to a CRM, and is it a hot lead? And we can sort of do all the flows there. So we can 100% implement a LinkedIn outreach to also do the property, which I guess, as this is a new one, we need it in a hexagon. And then from there, we can also utilize GPT as well. And I think that'd really be it. You'd have a few other similar flows, such as the calling and text, for people that are wanting to come in, same as the email management. So really, these two can just be adjusted a little bit. But from the sale, we're pretty much just doing home opens. We're just contacting and talking to people, which can be completely done from the email management flow that we built earlier, and also the voicemail, the voice cloning as well. So I think it's pretty confident that you can get away with 90% of the whole marketing of the property in those few automations. You could also do like an outreach, but I mean, that could be another one. If we have, let's add that because that probably is a big one. So we may also in here, move you over here. Oh no, we forgot one. Oh no. Oh, it's a disaster. We'll get there. We'll get there. So in here, we may hit email database. So agents have a huge database, huge database. So what this may look like is we can use a software like MailChimp or something as a mass email software. Otherwise, we can sort of do an API call on the back end, so we can sort of get like the CRM. That doesn't look like CRM, and then the CRM could then go to like a make scenario and get all the email addresses, add them to a spreadsheet, and then email them one by one through like without hitting the spam act. Usually you could just go MailChimp pretty quickly, but let's go here. Let's go list. So we're going to list them, and then we're going to go to once we list them, we want to send. We'll probably use ChatGPT to craft the email, and then we'll use probably send them to like a MailChimp or something. Mail, that doesn't look like it. I need to stop writing small. MailChimp campaign. So in terms of marketing the property, we have generation, photo generation, we have LinkedIn outreach, and we have emailing our past database. I think that's pretty safe to say that's a lot of, I would say 80, 90% of the ways that we can sell this house. So once that's under that, then we're going through the selling cycle. So in there, we could probably implement something similar to this onboarding sequence. We could email them and say, you know, final inspection on this date, final finance is due on this date. So we could sort of pre-generate them in there. So we could do a selling buyers onboarding flow. Where's my pen? And we could go contract signed into an email. It needs to be an email. Let's just draw an email into the specific dates. We probably also want a phone caller, so we can send this to the phone, right? And then this can do its own sequence. So we can trigger like a, hey, congratulations on purchasing the property. This is the expectation and stuff. And really what they're going to do is they're just going to repeat this email that was sent. Inside the scripting, we're going to be putting something similar to, hey, John, congrats on the property. Please note the finance due date is, and then we put the variable. Something like that. So the VAPI or 11 Labs will call them up and do this, and then we'll also trigger a text message once the phone call is done. And this is either looking like if I haven't got hold of you or if there's anything there. Now, the only other thing that sort of crossed my mind while I was writing this up that we could do is we could also do videos. Maybe we'll leave videos for the paid organic. So I think that's it. Once the contract's signed, we're pretty much sold, right? So let's put these next to each other so you can sort of see. All right. So we have one, two, three, four, five, six, seven, eight, probably nine because there's two here. Two times, two times. So we have 9 systems. But in doing that, what is what is the owner doing? If we look at it, the owner has got the marketing is pretty much done. He's just got to prompt um, what what style he wants. In terms of receiving the calls, people want appraisals. That's automated. And then he shows up to the appraisals. He sells it because he's a salesperson. Or he sends another team to it. So I guess we could include like a Slack messaging system. After this, when they sign the listing contract, they go on an onboarding sequence, and we sort of plan when the photographer comes out, when the next home open, the first home open is scheduled. We can do a couple of onboarding sequences to, depending on the property, is it ready, is it rented? We could expand on that a little bit more. And then once that's done, we need to market the property. So we're going into our email database. We're doing LinkedIn outreach. We're going to do auto generation of pictures and media and stuff for this property. Then once it gets sold, you go through, you sign the contract of sale. Then it starts the buyer's onboarding flow, which includes the VAPI bot we've already set up to make these calls. You just change the prompt, and then we're just going through and using a Twilio to send text messages, and then you show up at those important dates. So I think that's pretty solid. I think from a huge overall standpoint, like we spoke about at the beginning, this is delivering 80-90% of what we need. Now, sure thing, we could go down further, like the onboarding sequence could be broken into, like I said, we could go into whether it's rented, whether it's an investment, whether they're even in Australia. So if it's an international buyer, they could have different, and you could include information packs. So you could dial it down, but the overall, what we're trying to do is an onboarding sequence. So these 9 systems, if you ran just old school marketing, you would cover a lot of this, right? Now, I'm not going to go huge into depth here, but you can sort of see if we're doing the paid organic media, we would use this one, right? The only addition is we would probably add video generation. So you've seen all the realistic VO3. Google Flow has just came out with a new one, so you can implement a sort of an AI video if you really needed to. On top of this, you have something called arcades. So within arcades, these can pretty much give you a talking head to promote your business. Sort of one of these, and they can say, "Hey, we went to this real estate. They were amazing. They did this and this," and they can sort of give you a little bit of that brand recognition. Now, is it ethical? Maybe, maybe not. I'll leave it in your case, but they can be employed. And then obviously, they see the photos. All of this pretty much remains the same, right? So this whole section, you can use this automate and just change it over. Differences here. Friends and family, you would obviously want a management system like this, but you'd want to include birthdays and constant follow-ups and, hey, we sold your property a few weeks ago. How's everything going now? Did you find a new house to live? Are you on the streets? Um, are you hustling for money? Just all of that sort of stuff. So once the ones we've built, the 9 system is pretty close to what you'll need to run the sales side. We've just probably, you could probably get out to about 13, 14, and that's it. The whole thing would be on autopilot. And then if you really dive down into sort of the financial aspects of this, if your house sale is between 7 and 30K that you're selling, I mean, these systems altogether, you're probably looking at about a 20K investment. I would say just around about. So doing this one time to generate this per house, right? Keep that in mind. This is per house. This pays for itself easy. This is why automation is so important. And even though people see it and they get that sticker shock and they're like, holy shit, that is a lot of money. You know, if we came in and we said, hey, 20K, 30, even 40K, we'll drop all this down and it'll be picture perfect. I'll give you 15 systems. All of your sales is run on automatic. People often go, wow, that's a lot. But when you break it down like this, it makes a lot of sense, right? It's a lot of systems running. And I mean, your touch point is here, maybe here to help sign the contracts. You probably need to do the home opens here. And then you show up for the final inspections here. But what it takes off the plate is a hell of a lot more. You also, additionally, if you had staff members that are doing this, and at this point it went to a staff member, so another staff member is doing all this stuff. As an owner, you may not get 7, you might get, I don't know, 10, let's say 2 to 10K, as sort of like an owner's commission. Still, that's per house. You know, your staff, not even you, does 10 of these sales and you've paid for the whole thing. And this is a lifetime value. These systems stay with you for life. So I hope that clarifies a lot of it. I think that really marks my point of what I was trying to get to in this video. Just how we go about our logic. What would really happen next is you take this to a automator, you take this to Blacklight automations, and then we would come in and we'd say, okay, we just need this. And then we go down further as automators and we say, okay, so we're doing this. What systems do we need for this? We may need, let's say, make, and then we may need to do, we need email modules. So we need access to that. We may need something to like a Google Drive or some sort of contract to find the contract systems. We may need Google Suite for contracts. We may need Twilio to send the message, 11 Labs sequence to trigger that. And we go through and we map it like this. And then we go down even deeper from that. But that is pretty much it. You can see if we did that with property management, it'd be pretty close to the same way of how we'd map it. So I'm going to conclude it there. If anyone has any questions, let me know down in the comments. If you found this interesting, also let me know what part of it. I'd love to do more videos, possibly around the strategic side. I think there's a lot of benefit and it's a part of the industry that people aren't mentioning or watching or really just showing in general. So just let me know what you want to see. Other than that, if you have any other automation questions, all our details are in the description. So just drop us a comment in one of the social or on the website. So that is it from me. Have a great day.